Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today in this one, I have the new undeck that I've been teasing a little bit on streams, and I think that's the only place I've teased it, actually. I don't think I've talked about it in videos, really. I have talked about wanting to build a new deck on stream, though, and I kind of teased what deck it was a little bit by dropping some hints. But here it is now. I'm unveiling it on YouTube. My latest build, or my first build rather, of Prank-Kids. That's right, Prank-Kids is the next deck that I've decided to try to, get into. And I haven't played with this deck a whole lot at the time of recording this. I actually just built this deck last night and read over a whole bunch of combo guides, and then I played, I want to say maybe about a total of like 20-ish practice games, and those went fairly decently, I would say, At one point I had a 6-game win streak while testing the deck, so that was pretty nice. I definitely wouldn't say I'm like super familiar with all the combos just yet, or like super comfortable doing them, I guess, necessarily. It's not that I'm uncomfortable doing them, but I do still have to think about, like, between steps, like, okay, what is it? What do I have to do again? I have like the standard combo kind of down, but when I have that down a bit more, down pat, I will definitely be making a combo guide for this deck to kind of help you guys play it as well. And who knows, by the time this goes out, relative to when I'm recording it, maybe I'll already be in that place and maybe the combo guide will follow soon. Who knows? We'll see. But for this video, this is just going to be like my first, beginning deck profile where I talk about this is my current build, just getting into the deck, because I do tend to have different builds for decks as I'm just getting into them, right? I tend not to fully craft all of the ultra rares that are optimal for the deck. I'll kind of skate by a little bit with what I can get away with more than, again, making an optimal version of the deck. And then if I like it, maybe I'll craft another couple of ultra rares to round out the stuff that I'm missing. So I will say, though, I am having a great deal of fun pranking people. This deck is great. It plays a lot like Tri-Brigade Zodiac, actually, a lot more than I thought it would, which I didn't even really think about going into it. I just thought it looked like fun. But yeah, again, the way that it plays out, it really, and the way that you even build the deck is a lot like Tri-Brigade Zodiac. In that way that it is that because Prank-Kids are a lot about doing like 1, maybe 2 card combos to do your opening plays. And then just using that to gain a whole bunch of board and hand advantage, a lot like Tri-Zoo. So, like Tri-Zoo, we can actually afford to play quite a bit of disruption and hand traps that, other decks don't have as many slots for. Because again, for our combos, we need just one of like any Prank-Kid monster. And not only are we running 3 of each of the main deck Prank-Kids monsters, we're also playing 3 Prank-Kids place, as well as a Terraforming to search the Prank-Kids place, which can search Prank-Kids monsters. So that's a total of 16 Prank-Kids cards. And I remember in another video, I wish I could have remembered the guy's name. I could have given you a shout out. I'm so sorry. But I did see somebody else mention that with 16 slots, you have a 93% chance of opening a Prank-Kids monster, which again, just 1 is enough to get your like basic combo going. It's kind of like just opening Fractal, right? Except we're far more likely to open a Prank-Kids monster than just Fractal in Tri-Zoo. Another way it's very similar to Tri-Zoo is that we kind of like play a lot on our turn, but then finish our play on our opponent's turn. Using the quick play fusion spell Prank-Kids Pandemonium, we can get out the Prank-Kids Battle Butler, which has a quick effect, can tribute itself to Raigeki, our opponent's board, but Prank-Kids Meow Meow Moo can banish itself from the graveyard instead of a Prank-Kids monster tributing itself to activate its effect. So we can not only get a free Raigeki on our opponent's turn, we can actually get a second one too if we're willing to give up our Battle Butler. Not too big of a deal to do that because we can always put it back with Prank-Kids Pranks. A lot of builds also run 2 Battle Butler, which even just in my early preliminary testing, I'm already seeing how that could be useful. So I would like to put another Battle Butler in this deck eventually, once I got more used to it. Alright, let's go ahead and go through the deck card by card real quick, and then I'll talk about some more card choices here. So we're playing, of course, 3 Prank-Kids Fansies, 3 Maxx, 3 Prank-Kids Dropsies, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Prank-Kids Lampsies, 3 Prank-Kids Rocksies, 2 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Terraforming, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Thunder Dragon Fusion, 3 Prank-Kids Place, rather, Prank-Kids Pranks, not to be confused with Prank-Kids Place. We're playing 1 copy of Prank-Kids Pranks. We're playing 2 Called By, 2 Prank-Kids Pandemonium, 3 Crossout Designator, 2 Forbidden Droplet, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. Down here in the extra deck, we got a Prank-Kids Rocket Ride, a Prank-Kids Weather Washer, Prank-Kids Battle Butler, Toadally Awesome, Prank-Kids Meow Meow Moo, 3 of those. We're playing a Knightmare Phoenix, 3 Prank-Kids Dodo Doodle Doo, 1 Prank-Kids Bow Wow Bark, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and 1 Access Code Talker. So I've already talked about the roles of the Prank-Kids monsters. Again, any one of these can let you combo off. We'll see an example of this here in one of the replays. I've got a few, as always, of the deck profiles. I've got a few replays to show you. These are going to be of me very much in practice mode for the deck, so I will not guarantee that these will be optimal play, but they're still decent games, and a couple of them illustrate the lines that you can do very well. But basically the idea is you start with any of these Prank-Kids monsters. If you don't start with Fansies, you can use the first one to link summon into Meow Meow Moo, and then you'll want to go into Fansies with the first Prank Kid effect. If you open with Fansies, that's fine too. You can just go straight into Meow Meow Moo. The important thing is that we Fansies early on, so that way we can send Prank-Kids Pandemonium to the graveyard. From there, we can link into Dodo Doodle Doo. That'll let us add the Prank-Kids Pranks. From there, we can even tribute Dodo Doodle Doo to get back one of our Prank-Kids monsters in the Prank-Kids Pandemonium. From there, we use Prank-Kids Pranks, and then meanwhile, don't forget, as we're linking with each of these Prank-Kids monsters, or summoning another Prank-Kids from the main deck. Then we can go eventually into Bow Wow Bark, plus a Prank-Kids monster. I skipped a few steps here again, don't worry, we'll actually see this in play. The important thing is with one card, you can set up a Battle Butler on your opponent's turn by fusing 3 Prank-Kids with Prank-Kids Pandemonium. This in turn will allow you to also summon 3 Prank-Kids monsters to the board. Oftentimes you can set 2 of these up to be 2 Dropsies, and that's how you go into your Toadally Awesome here. I will admit I actually have not gone into this card too much just yet. I know that it is easier to go into Toadally Awesome if you're playing Polymerization in your deck, so I am still considering a copy of that. However, looking at Prank-Kids decks on MasterDuelMeta.com from this season, I only saw one of like 12 that was actually playing Poly, so I've chosen not to include it just yet in this build. One thing you're noting probably in this build that you've not seen in any of my decks so far is not 1, not even 2, but 3 Crossout Designators. Yeah, I decided to go ahead and just craft a playset for this deck. It's funny because I'm going to have to stagger the release of these videos correctly, but before recording this video, and hopefully before this video got released, you should have seen my updated staple guide, in which I was like, oh yeah, I've got pretty much everything on here except Vert Anaconda and then Crossout Designator, and then funnily enough, I just ended up crafting those cards anyway, so go figure. But Crossout Designator we might try in some future decks, or not some future decks, but we might try putting in some of our previous decks for future videos as well, but it's actually very, very important to Prank-Kids. This card is extremely important alongside Called By, because this deck, probably more than any honestly, probably more than any I've played on the channel, is just so vulnerable to hand traps, even more so than Adancipator. Like, you thought Maxx against Adancipator was bad. Like, really, any one of these hand traps, Maxx, Ash, or Nibiru, can totally stop a Prank-Kids line in its tracks. So that's why Crossout Designator is extremely important in this deck to hit Maxx, Ash, and Nibiru. It's part of the reason we're playing 2 Nibiru. Crossout Designator can also hit Droplet and Imperm. That's definitely come up. Droplet in particular, hitting that has come up for me before in games. I think we'll actually see a game where that comes up. As well as, you know, of course, if you run into the mirror match, as always, you can use Crossout Designator against that. You can even Crossout Designator, I'm pretty sure, yeah, you can Crossout Designator another Crossout Designator. So since we're playing 3 of that, that's even a niche play that could, I guess, in theory, come up. This deck does have a lot of ways to chain block to play around, particularly Ash Blossom, and Instant Fusion is in here not only as an extender, but there's also a line you can do with it to play around Ash Blossom. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get to show that line. I actually got really close to being able to show the line in full in one of my practice games, but my opponent conceded halfway through the combo, which was really annoying because, again, I was like halfway through it, and I was like, this is good, I can show the Instant Fusion line. So that is a line of play you need to learn a little bit better before I would feel comfortable explaining it, honestly, just without an example in front of me. But yeah, just know that you can use Instant Fusion to help you chain block your entire combo around Ash Blossom, so you can set up a Battle Butler without Ash stopping you. Okay, I think that's about all I've got to say about the build so far. Oh, I guess I will say something about the build too. Again, in an optimized build, I would like to have a second Battle Butler. And then there's also, we're not playing the Rip-Roaring Roaster here, which if you look on MasterDuelMeta.com, like 86% of Prank-Kids decks are playing. But when I was doing my research on like the Discord and just like videos and just discussion about the deck in general, I found that this card seems to be a bit more like 50-50 among Prank-Kids players. I mean, really the thing about Prank-Kids, which actually did make this deck a little bit difficult to put together, honestly, is that there are so many different ways you can put the main and extra deck together that there's not really any one correct build. But for me, Rip-Roaring Roaster was just like, you know, it's another ultra rare that I didn't want to craft right away. Again, if I decided I like this deck and play it a lot, I might go and craft it in the future. It's basically the same as Battle Butler, except it's a Link 4 instead of a Fusion, and it's for back rows instead of monsters. So that is useful against more like, you know, stun decks or something, but obviously for the most part, Battle Butler is, I mean, one Battle Butler is definitely necessary, but Battle Butler is going to be like my priority. Being able to Raigeki the opponent's board is obviously a lot more useful for stopping plays than wiping all their back row. So in that regard, the two ultra rares that I would craft to finish this deck out, quote unquote finish it out, make it like fully optimized, would be a second Battle Butler and a Roaring Roaster. My plan would be to craft Butler, then Roaster. As far as what I would take out of the extra deck, you definitely don't need 3 Prank-Kids Dodo Doodle Doo. It's definitely nice because you will use multiple copies across multiple turns, but we can also recycle them with Prank-Kids Pranks, so it's really not 100% necessary to have 3 Dodo Doodle Doo. So I drop one of those, and then the Knightmare Phoenix I think is the other just like flex spot right now. This is definitely just like an in case you need it, but hasn't come up for me yet. Again, I've only played about 20 games, but yeah, this is the other card I would drop. So again, if I was willing to craft 2 more ultra rares, which I know I could, but I like to hoard my points. We all know this about me at this point. I would drop Dodo Doodle Doo number 3 and Knightmare Phoenix from the extra deck to include, in this order, Battle Butler and then Roaring Roaster. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much about all I've got to say about the deck here. Yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right into these replays. Okay, so this first replay we're going to be watching is going to be against... Oh, if the replay loads here. I was going to say, I've encountered those swirls in ranks, but never been doing a replay before. Okay, so this is going to be against an invoked Shaddoll deck, a good old Dr. Toe here. We get the first turn, and I actually get to demonstrate fairly well here the quote-unquote standard combo, the one Prank-Kids line that you want to do generally on your first opening turn almost every time. So we're going to start by summoning our first Prank-Kids. In this case, it's going to be Lampsies. Doesn't particularly matter which one. We're going to use the Lampsies to go into Meow Meow Moo. And then from there, Lampsies effect will then summon Fansies from our deck. I activated Place here just to throw it in, but you definitely do not have to activate Prank-Kids Place. For all intents and purposes, just ignore that I activated this. I just did it, again, just mostly because I could. So, again, we started with our first Prank-Kids. That was Lampsies in our case. Send Lampsies to make Meow Meow Moo, which is a Link 1. Then Lampsies effect, since it was used as a material for a Link summon. We did 500 damage to our opponent, and then we special summoned Fansies from our deck. From there, we're going to link Fansies and Meow Meow Moo into Prank-Kids Dodo Doodle Doo. Now, we're used to doing this in Adamanticators to summoning this monster, but Dodo Doodle Doo has much more utility in an actual Prank-Kids deck, obviously. For one, when it's summoned, we get to add a Prank-Kids spell or trap from deck to hand. Now, notice that I chain blocked in such a way that Dodo Doodle Doo was chain link 2 and Fansies was chain link 1. That's definitely very important because between the two, we would definitely rather have our Dodo Doodle Doo search get ashed as opposed to the Fansies summon. If the Fansies summon gets ashed and negated, well, that's just going to stop our line altogether. So I definitely want to chain blocks to block the Fansies there. We're going to use Dodo Doodle Doo to add Prank-Kids Pranks, and then we're going to use Fansies effect to send Pandemonium before we summon our next Prank-Kids, which is going to be Dropsies. From there, we're going to use Dodo Doodle Doo's second effect, which is the ability to tribute, if it comes up here. Yep, tribute itself, and then target 2 differently named Prank-Kids cards in our graveyard and add them to our hand. We are going to do this in order to return the Fansies as well as the Pandemonium we just sent from our graveyard to our hand. Now we'll activate Prank-Kids Pranks. We'll discard any card, usually just the just like a Prank-Kids monster. If we didn't already have Lampsies off the Prank-Kids place search, we could have just discarded the Fansies that we had gotten back to our hand. It doesn't matter which one we discard here. We're going to do that to make a Prank-Kids token. From there, we're going to link our token and our Dropsies actually into another Dodo Do, which might be a bit odd at first, right? It's like, why would you go into another Dodo Do? You've already used both effects. The main reason is to make sure we load up a decent amount of Prank-Kids in Graveyard to shuffle back with place, not or with pranks. I'm going to mess it up all the time when talking about this deck, pranks in place. Not only on this end phase, but for future end phases, we just want to make sure we're able to consistently put stuff back and draw with Prank-Kids place. So we'll use Dropsies to summon Rocksies, which is going to be the fourth of our Prank-Kids monsters. We'll then link Rocksies and our Dodo Do into Bow Wow Bark. From there, we'll use Prank-Kids Rocksies. We do need a card in hand to do this, so definitely do be mindful of that. We get to cycle it, though, so that's nice. And then for the last Prank-Kids, it doesn't really matter which one we get since we've already used all four, and we're not going to link any further. But it's generally best to go for Fansies because Fansies has the highest defense. So at this point, you want to set your Prank-Kids Pandemonium, as well as any other back rows you might want to throw down. I threw down the Imperm here, but definitely want to set Prank-Kids Pandemonium, which is going to be kind of like our revolt for this deck. And then from there, we're good to go. And, oh, of course, during the end phase, we get our Prank-Kids Pranks to shuffle back a couple of our main deck monsters, as well as a Dodo Do to draw a card, which is actually Nibiru. So this is why I say Prank-Kids are a lot like Tri-Brigade Zodiac, right? It's very similar in that we have a one-card combo that got to set up everything on board here except for the place and the Imperm. Just ignore those two, but the Bow Wow Bark, the Fansies, the Prank-Kids Pranks, and the Pandemonium, those all came from one card, as well as like the additional cards in our hand as well. So, well, some of them anyway. What I meant to say is we have this advantage as well as the cards in our hand and the other cards that we put on the field. So, like, as you can see, Prank-Kids are able to generate a lot of advantage if they go uninterrupted, which again is very important. In this scenario, we were kind of lucky that our opponent didn't have hand traps, but note that we did have both Called By and Ash in our opening hand as well. So had they had a Maxx, we could have stopped it with Ash. Other hand traps could have hit with Called By. Nibiru, we didn't have Crossout Designator, so would have been, you know, that would have impacted us a bit more, but it's totally fine here. So here it's going to be our opponent's turn, and we're basically going to want to save the Pandemonium for just, it's kind of like Revolt in that you'll just save it for a good time when you want to interrupt whatever your opponent's doing. So they're going to lead with Terraforming, and not knowing what my opponent's playing, at this point thinking it could be Numeron, I decided to just go ahead and Ash the Terraforming here. Could be, yeah, I'm thinking, okay, it could be Numeron, could be Sky Strikers, but then I see the Escalia, and I realize, okay, the Terraforming was to go for the Magical Meltdown, so I'll go ahead and Imperm my opponent's search here. I also like flipping Imperm early against Shaddolls in general, because sometimes after you Imperm, they'll absentmindedly play like the Shaddol Fusion or Invocation in this middle zone. Unfortunately, our opponent did already have the Dogmatica Fluidless, and I actually messed up the timing of this Pandemonium here a little bit. Not in terms of being able to combo, but in terms of when I should have activated it. Definitely should have been different timing. But in any case, we'll go ahead and talk now about the resolution of what's happening here. So the Dogmatica's Chainlink 1, I responded with Pandemonium as Chainlink 2, but then if you're going to flip Pandemonium, you want to immediately respond with Bow Wow Bark. So in this case, Pandemonium is Chainlink 2, Bow Wow Bark is Chainlink 3. The reason is because Bow Wow Bark is going to be adding some Prank-Kids back to our hand, and we're going to want to go for Battle Butler, which is going to need 3 materials total. So we want the Bow Wow Bark to add the cards back to our hand before we fuse. So just remember, Chainlink Bow Wow Bark after Pandemonium. So do Pandemonium, then Bow Wow Bark, because again, chains resolve backwards. We'll add back Lampsies and Dropsies with Bow Wow Bark. We'll then fuse Fansies, Lampsies, and Dropsies into good old Prank-Kids Battle Butler. So now the Escalia drops, and this is where I messed up the chain a little bit here. I should have waited because now the, or not the Escalia, the Fluidless. The Fluidless is going to be able to negate Battle Butler now with its effect. I thought I was going to get a chance to get to activate Battle Butler like in response here, but no, that's not how the chain link resolves there. So, however, we do get to then activate the effects of all 3 of our Prank-Kids because it's a new turn and we're using all 3 of them as fusion materials. And we even get to throw on the Prank-Kids Place as Chainlink 4, which is a good reason to have Prank-Kids Place out in general, as it can be used to, once again, chain block these effects from being ashed, which, as you know, chain blocking is like, you know, it comes up, you know, often in Tri-Zoo, but it is an essential thing to know for Prank Kids. So we're chain blocking over our Prank Kids with Prank Kids Place. If our Battle Butler wasn't negated, we would have thrown Battle Butler at the end of that chain link to blow up our opponent's board. But we still get to summon out 3 different Prank Kids here. Our opponent's going to be able to run over a couple of them with their monsters, but it's not that big of a deal. Most important is that they can't get over the Battle Butler. And thanks to our negating of the Magical Meltdown, or the Terraforming to search for Magical Meltdown, and slightly as well the Escalate search, our opponent can't really combo off any further. So from here, I'm going to go into Meow Meow Moo using the Prank Kid that I already have on board, the Rocksies here. I've got plenty of extra cards in hand, so I don't have to worry about, you know, having an extra card to banish with it. I'll just go ahead and probably get rid of either, Nibiru or Fansies here. From there, we get to summon out our own Fansies, link these 2 away into our Doodle Do. At this point now, instead of climbing up to a setup for Battle Butler, I'm just climbing to set up into an access code talker to eventually go for lethal here. It's funny, the access code plus Battle Butler is often enough to go for lethal, even though in this deck, access code's pretty much always going to be at 4,300 attack. 35 plus 43 is 78. You might be thinking, wait, you're 200 damage short, right? Well, actually, Lampsies, don't forget, deals 500 damage. So if you're going second, that's also often an OTK that you can set up, is the access code plus Battle Butler like that. Now here our opponent's going to try to Droplets to negate our Battle Butler, but fortunately we have the Crossout Designator. We drew that for a turn, so we're able to slam it down, and like I mentioned in the deck profile, we were going to see a game where the Crossout Designator is useful against Droplet there. So yeah, that was a pretty good game just to show off what Prank Kids are kind of all about. The standard turn 1 line, we got to explain that, like the 1 card line, so to speak. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Okay, so this next duel is going to be against an Infernoid deck, which is funny because even though Infernoids aren't like, necessarily like a tier, 1 or even 3, honestly, deck, something about them is just really scary. I don't know, I just get really scared whenever I play against them. So, yep, opening hand here, you might think to yourself, oh no, we didn't open a Prank Kids monster, but it's okay, we opened a Prank Kids Place, so we did open a Prank Kids monster. Plus we've got both Called By and Crossout Designator, so I'm not scared of any hand traps whatsoever here. We're going to search a, what do we get, a Lampsies? Yep, a Lampsies. That's generally the one I like to start with. It doesn't really matter, honestly, for the most part, but I just personally like to start with Lampsies. We'll start with that and then go into our standard Prank Kids line. Once again, well, the standard Prank Kids line, I'm used to saying that without Emancipator, where Prank Kids are just like an offshoot of what the deck does, but I mean here, it's obviously all of what we do, so yep, once again, we're going to add Pranks and send Pandemonium to grave. We're then going to use Dodo to return both Fansies and Pandemonium to our hand. Once again, like I said, we're just going through the same combo we did last time. We're going to use Prank Kids Pranks effect here, discarding the Fansies to get a token. We can then link the Dropsies and the token to link summon our next Dodo. And then, of course, we get to summon off of Dropsies. We're going to go ahead and get Rocksies out. We can now link away into good old Bow Wow Bark. And we even get to filter a little bit with Roxy's effect here. I'm going to banish one of my Pandemoniums here because we have an extra one, and it's probably the least, I guess, useful of the cards here. I'll set Pandemonium and Droplet. I could have set Call By and or Crossout too, but I was a little bit afraid of something like Lightning Storm or Harpy's Feather Duster blowing me out, so I decided to just set the Droplet and the Pandemonium, what I consider to be the more essential of the responses here. So here are my opponent reasonings. I call level 10 just in case it's an Eldritch deck, but then I start to see the Infernoid stuff go to grave, and excuse me, once again, I don't know what it is about Infernoids that just legit scare me. Whenever I play against this deck, I'm just like, it comes from when I played IRL too. I think it's just because I don't understand the deck super well. So, of course, what does man fear but what they don't know? So, since I don't super duper always understand how Infernoids work, I just tend to be like, oh my god, they're sending so much stuff to grave. Like this raising a monster gate, I'm like, that's like a grass right there. our opponent is going to summon Decatron here, which I've played against Infernoids a couple of times on Master Duel, and I know Decatron well enough to know how scary this card is, so I want to actually negate it. So what I'm doing here, because I want to negate it with Droplet, but I don't want to waste any of my cards here, is I'm just going to go ahead and go into my Battle Butler now, and then I will send the Prank-Kids Pandemonium that I'm fusing with Droplet to negate the Decatron here. So of course, as always, when we fuse, we need to make sure that it goes chain link. Well, chain link 1 is probably going to be something we're responding to, but just make sure that the Bow Wow Bark gets chained to the Pandemonium, so that way Bow Wow Bark resolves first, adding the Prank-Kids to our hand, which then with the Pandemonium lets us fuse into Battle Butler. Otherwise, if you do it in the wrong order, you'll accidentally have to fuse into Rocket Ride or Weather Washer, which are obviously not what we want here. Once again, as always, we're chain blocking the Prank-Kids with the place here. I always want to call it Palace. I should just call it Prank-Topless. That's what I called the deck, because for a while, like when I was building the deck, I couldn't remember what Prank-Kids Place was called, because I kept getting confused with Prank-Kids Pranks. So I just started calling it Prank-Topless, which is, I don't know, I love that name. It's amusing to me. Opponent's gonna fuse here, which looks really scary, but the Teria is really just going to force us to mill cards from our extra main deck, which is not a huge deal here. Yep, I don't even feel the need to Battle Butler it just yet. I'll just wait and see what my opponent goes into first. Here they're going to go into a Vert Anaconda, and then they're going to chain Super Poly, which I was actually, did freak me out, and it's like, oh, I should have actually used Battle Butler earlier than I did, because then, yeah, they Super Poly'd into the Predaplant Dragostaplia. Which, it just was a little bit unlucky that they got to use my Battle Butler as their fusion monster there, so... Yep, they'll get out their Infernoid Onochu, but, even though we lost our Battle Butler without being able to use it, as you can see, we still have, like, 3 Prank-Kids monsters on the board and a full hand to work with here. Like, we are not hurting for ways to come back at this point. So, that's, again, just another thing I really, really like about Prank-Kids, honestly. Another thing that's really reminiscent of Trizu, again, because we don't have to commit that many combo pieces in order to combo out, we can just go ahead and have a whole bunch of advantage in addition to the advantage that our combo gains us. So yeah, our opponent's going to try to respond with Fabled Onochu to Prank-Kids Place's effect. I don't know why, because it's just an attack, like, lowering, I think, here, because I summoned a Link monster, right? But I'll call by it anyway, because I have 2 call bys, and then this will get rid of the Onochu off the field and graveyard permanently. And then I guess that's just enough for my opponent to concede. Again, like I said, don't know a whole lot about Infernoids, but I guess what I did was backbreaking enough, so... cool, yep. I've got one more game to show you, and then we'll go ahead and call it here. Alright, last game for the video here, last replay to go along with this deck profile. So once again, I get to take the first turn. This is very much a first turn deck, by the way. Oh, and also, I want to point out, I don't know if this is usually right, but I'm assuming it is. I went ahead and Prank-Kids placed, even though I already had the Fansies in my hand, because I figure, well, if it's anything like Tenki and Fractal, right, we always want to Tenki before we Fractal to bait the Ash, especially in a hand like this, where I actually don't have anything to respond to hand traps with. But fortunately, from what I recall, they didn't get a prompt to respond with a hand trap here, so that's pretty good. Maybe they did, actually, because now they get to Maxx C here. As soon as I said that, I was like, wait, don't they Maxx C this game? So, yeah, unfortunately, if they have Maxx C and we don't have a way to stop it, we really can't do any amount of plays without doing a lot of special summoning. So, I'm just going to stop here with the Lampsies in attack mode. Our opponent's actually playing Crusadia, like a pure Crusadia deck, which I've never played against. So, this was definitely a first for me, not only in, playing against this deck, but also I was still relatively new to Prank-Kids. So, it's like, all right. Decks I'm unfamiliar with on both sides. Let's go. I am familiar with Regulux during my time using it in the normal and rare event. Fortunately, by this point, my opponent has summoned enough for me to use Nibiru, so at this point, I'm just waiting for them to end their main phase, see if they'll commit more to the board before I just go ahead and drop the good old rock on them. They don't. They're about to end their main phase there, so I just go ahead and summon Nibiru, giving them their defense mode token, of course. And then opponent passes back to us. So at this point here, I'm thinking like, okay, I think I should be able to go for a game as long as I'm able to do my combos correctly here. So We're going to start with Dropsies, and then from there go into our... well, we'll start by going into something pretty similar to the standard kind of Prank-Kids one-card combo here, which is going to be the Dropsies into the Meow Meow Moo, Dropsies summon Fansies. We'll link the two of those away into Dodo Doodle Doo. And then, of course, we'll use both Fansies and Dodo Doodle Doo's effects here. I do already have the Prank-Kids Pranks in my hand, so no need to search that. We can just go ahead and add a Pandemonium. And I just went ahead and sent a Pandemonium as well. Again, I don't know. I don't know the deck super well here. So this is where we diverge a little bit here. We're going to discard, or we're going to activate Prank-Kids Pranks. And then we're going to set up the token here. I'm then going to link Rocksies and the token into another Dodo Doodle Doo. Basically, I'm just going to go ahead... Oh, that's right. I end up banishing the second Pandemonium for the Rocksies effect here. At this point, we're going to go ahead and activate Rocksies, or activate Dodo Doodle Doo, rather, to get back Fansies and Pandemonium, so we can set up the Battle Butler play. Opponent does a DD Crow, which would normally be a bit of a backbreaker, but we actually luckily drew into Call by the Grave, so I definitely wanted to keep Monster Reborn to help us OTK here, so that's why I kind of did this in the sequence, that I did. Alright, we're going to go ahead and then link away the Dodo Doodle Doo and the Prank-Kids on board into Vert Anaconda. As I was going to use Pandemonium, but then I realized, oh, I can just Vert and send the Thunder Dragon fusion to go ahead and summon Battle Butler. Now this is where I make a mistake that costs me the game. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, cool, the Prank-Kids place is going to activate, all of my stuff's going to get buffed, and then that's going to be enough to go for game. All I have to do is Battle Butler to Raigeki my opponent's token out of the way, and I can just banish Meow Meow Moo, keep all my stuff on board, and then, yeah, with the buff, it'll be enough for lethal, right? Well, wrong, because this is where reading cards becomes very, very important. Because if we read Meow Meow Moo, it says if a Prank-Kids monster you control would tribute itself to activate its effect during your opponent's turn, you can banish this card you control from your graveyard instead. Yeah, I definitely thought this was just, banished to substitute for a tribute, just whenever. But nope, it's only during your opponent's turn. So I make a fatal misplay here, and I tribute the Battle Butler I just summoned to Raigeki this token, which, yeah, definitely not the ideal play there. So we'll still smack our opponent. Oops, I didn't mean to pause there. We'll still smack our opponent for 45, but not the lethal I was hoping for. We set Pandemonium, which is a bit unfortunate because we're not going to really have a use for it. Oh, could I have just Monster... Oh, no, I couldn't have Monster Reborn. That's right. You might be wondering, well, couldn't you have just Monster Reborn there? I wonder if it's... yeah, it's Prank-Kids Battle Butler must be Fusion Summoned. So I knew there was some kind of condition that was preventing me from doing it. So unfortunately, no, we are not able to just Monster Reborn our Battle Butler back. And the problem with Crusadia, honestly, is that their stuff just gets really big by their own effects, so they didn't have anything strong for us to bring back, nor did we really have anything strong. We could have potentially Monster Reborn to Dodo Doodle Doo, but I figured at this point I kind of just wanted to save my resources here, so... yep, unfortunately we don't get the OTK that I thought I was going to be able to get there. But I still wanted to show this game just to show, not only, of course, what Crusadia can do, because they're actually about to go into some cool plays here, but just that it's, natural when you're first learning a deck to not always play it correctly. So this misplay does ultimately cost the game, but I think it's important to highlight misplays to show not only just, again, what not to do, but like I just said, to show that, hey, when you're still learning a deck, it's totally okay to make mistakes like that. That is how we learn. That is how we get to the point of being good with a deck. It's never going to be like... I think some people end up with this mentality where they think to themselves like, oh, I just have to read, enough combo guides, and then once I do that, then I can play the deck flawlessly. No, you can read combo guides and watch combo guide videos all day long, but until you get some, practical experience, that's ultimately going to be what gives you the most, well, what's going to help you learn a deck the most. So, but yeah, anyway, this is something cool that Crusadia is able to do that I've never really seen in action before. Set up a monster with huge attack and also give it the ability to inflict double battle damage. So when my opponent runs over my Nibiru here, it's boom, gonna deal 9,200 damage. I wanted to leave that in because I thought that looked pretty cool. In addition to, like I said, talking about how it's okay to make mistakes. But yeah, those are all the replays I've got for you. Let's move on to the outro. Okay, everybody, so that's about all I got for you in this one. Yeah, I'm really excited about this new deck that we've put together, Prank-Kids. It's a deck that not only I've been personally interested in crafting, just like to play, because it looks fun, but also I know that in the future that this deck gets pretty good with like the adventurer support. So it's like, so I got some future proofing to it in that regard, where it's not only usable and good now, but it will also be good in the future as well. In addition to that, like I touched on towards the beginning of the video, you know, some of the decks that I need, or some of the cards that I needed to craft for this deck were pretty much staples anyway that I can use in a lot of other future decks, like Vert Anaconda and the set of Crossout Designators. So, you know, I figured, hey, you know, it's a, like I said, it's a fun deck that I want to try now. It's a deck that I think would be good in the future, and it's also a deck that's got staples I want anyway. So, yeah, I think that is going to just about do it for this video. Guys, thank you as always for watching. I am definitely eager to make some more Prank-Kids videos in the future, so look forward to getting pranked. Not only for like a maybe combo guide once I learn the deck a bit better, but for some more gameplay, maybe even live gameplay as well. So, like I said, without further ado, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you for watching to the end, and especially thank you if you're commenting and subscribing as well. Don't feel like you have to as long as you're along for the ride with me. That is all I really care about. But yep, this is XLex, signing out. I hope you guys have a fantastic day.